right, good morning. We'll begin the council meeting. We're going to do a presentation. Go ahead. Yeah, let's go live. Good morning. We are in the Van Nuys, our monthly council meeting here at the Van Nuys City Hall. Meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for today, Friday, December 4th. Good morning, colleagues. Mr. Alarcon, Mr. Cardenas, Ms. Hahn, Mr. LeBonge, Mr. Parks, Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Smith, Mr. Weston, and I'm Councilmember Zine. Council meets 3 times per week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. All meetings are open to the public. For those that cannot make it to City Hall, meetings are televised via cable on Channel 35. Can be viewed by visiting our website. We will now call the meeting to order. This meeting is now in session. Clerk, please. We're not at a quorum yet? 8, 9. We're at 9. Okay, we will start presentations then. I'm sorry, I thought we were at a quorum. Mr. Cardenas? Thank you. Mr. Cardenas, for a presentation. I understand Mr. Cardenas is ready for a presentation. Mr. Cardenas, it is yours for presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues and members of the community. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to recognize 3 wonderful gentlemen. But I'll start by saying, what do you get when you get a tailor, a barber, and a shoe repairman? Great service. That's what you get. What I'd like to do at this moment is ask Luigi, Giovanni, and Hago to please come forward. Stand around here. There you go. Not directly behind me, next to me.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. They're not used to this, folks, but they should get used to it because they've been serving our community for many, many years. I'd like to start off by saying a few words about Luigi De La Ripa. He's a tailor. He owns a tailor shop right around the corner from here, just a block and a half away from where we stand today. Luigi has had his location in Van Nuys for 50 years. He provides custom tailoring. He came from Venezuela in 1959 to see Hollywood.
Right.
You saw
That's
Hollywood, right?
Yes, I did.
To see Hollywood. He came to Van Nuys since many friends and acquaintances were from Van Nuys. He also bought the building where his shop is for much, much less than people are buying buildings today. He's made a great, great investment, and he's made our community much, much better by him and the patrons who rent from his facility as well. He also married 44 years ago when he met his wife right around the corner at St. Elizabeth's Church in Van Nuys. He also attended Van Nuys Adult School to learn English. I point out those few remarks about Luigi because it really does remind us that in this great country, all you have to do is bring your humble intent, your willingness to work hard, and you can have a great and wonderful life. But more importantly, you can touch hundreds and thousands of lives over your career. And also, one of the things that we can't forget, some people think that tailor work is a lost art. Well, the fact of the matter, it is not. Luigi is not lost. Luigi is right here in this community. He's providing tremendous, wonderful service. If I can afford a tailor, I'd probably go to Luigi too. But that's another story. But my point is this. Luigi is a very humble man and a good man, and he served our community very, very well. So with that, I'd like to give Luigi an opportunity to say a few words, and I'll give him a certificate of recognition for his fine, wonderful contribution to the community of Van Nuys. Luigi?
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Councilman De Gardner, to give me this honor. I have been established in Venice, serving the community for 50 years as a tailor. I came to Venice because it is the center of the valley. I saw the potential with the city hall and the court. I was very good in business. I could dress up all the judges and the lawyer. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. There you go. This is for you. We'll take a picture in a few minutes. We'll take a picture together. Thank you. Next, I'd like to ask Giovanni Caputo to come forward, please. Said with an Italian accent sometimes. Giovanni's Barbershop, which is originally named Manny's Barbershop, again, right around the corner from where we stand. He has been running this store for 35 years in the same location since 1974, right here in Van Nuys. He provides men and boys haircuts and also fashion face shaves. You use that straight razor, right?
Yes, straight,
yeah,
yes.
that kind of scares me, but I'm sure everybody's just fine under your service. He's an Italian immigrant, and he came from Argentina in 1972, and he's also a North Hollywood resident. Once again, some people think that if you walk into a barbershop, you're not going to be able to go back in time and experience something that seems like it is, in fact, timeless. Well, the fact of the matter is Giovanni's Barbershop is timeless. I actually stopped in one day and we were talking. We're talking about some of the issues that are facing the community, and I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But Giovanni is the kind of person who makes you feel welcome. Giovanni is a professional, and he's someone who takes his work very, very seriously. He may not have noticed, but when I went into his shop that one day, I was talking to him, but I was actually looking at how he was interacting with the people who were in there receiving his service, and I was watching also how they talk to him and how he talks to them. And it really is kind of like that old-fashioned barbershop that you might see on TV, but you don't have to watch a television to get that experience. Just stop by Giovanni's Barbershop, and you're going to see that it is a place that makes you feel like you're at home. It's a place where it makes you feel comfortable, and it's a place where you know that you're standing with friends. And not every business, not every industry can actually give that kind of service and make people feel that welcome. And Giovanni does that. So with that, I'd like to give Giovanni an opportunity to say a few words.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Council, for giving me this opportunity, and appreciate it for the reconnaissance for the time, the years we're still in Van Nuys to serve the community. So I feel very nice, very happy, Van Nuys. I love Van Nuys, and I love all the community. I do serve the best to do, the all the people, men, boy, whatever. So once again more, I give thank you very much for reconnaissance for the game of this certificate.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Hagop Georgian. Georgian. I think I said that right. Georgian. He's been at his business for 17 years in the same location, right next to these other two businesses, providing shoe repair, restoration, and shoe shines. He inherited the business through his uncle, and also he's originally from Philadelphia, another foreign country. No, I'm just kidding. Philadelphia, and came to Los Angeles in 1980 with his uncle. Again, I stopped by his shop the other day, and that's where I'm going to tell you all the story of how I met these three gentlemen. What happened was, government wasn't doing the right thing. We have this wonderful, beautiful facility. We have hundreds of parking stalls downstairs below us. And unfortunately, many of the city workers were not utilizing the parking as they were allowed to, as it was provided for them. And out of convenience, they were parking around the streets right around these two buildings. And that was causing a problem for our big businesses and our small businesses. But three small business owners decided to speak up, and they had every right and they had a responsibility to speak up. So when they called the city of Los Angeles, they didn't exactly get much of a response. And when they called my office, we immediately looked into it. And I'm very, very proud to say that my staff went above and beyond the call of duty. As what we did, unfortunately, we had to put the clamp down on our city workers. And we sent LADOT to go give city workers tickets. And some people might think, yeah, right, that never happens. Well, it did. We sent the message to the city workers. We first had them educated through their departments to remind them, you have city vehicles. You have a right and a responsibility to utilize the parking structure that we provided for you. Stop parking on the streets. You are taking away the opportunity for our businesses to do business so their patrons can park, get their shoes shined, get their clothes tailored, or go get their hair cut. You need to park in the parking lots. It fixed the problem a little bit with that education. And then when we sent LADOT a clear message that they need to enforce the law, they started giving tickets. And it's my understanding to this day, it has improved drastically. And the parking is there. I mentioned earlier that we went above and beyond the call of duty. I happen to have someone in my office, Daniel, who's a planner, and he gets really, really excited about transportation and parking and things of that nature. Much like most Americans get excited about those things. That was a joke. Nobody gets excited about those things except for people like Daniel. So what Daniel did, he said, look, the parking situation has vastly improved. The city workers are now parking where they're supposed to, so the patrons have a place to park and visit these businesses. But what he also said, he said, you know what, we have an opportunity to do diagonal parking on these streets, specifically in front of these businesses. And what Daniel did is, he showed me why it makes sense for us to change the parking there. So we drastically improved the amount of parking, and in addition to that, provided an atmosphere where the city of Los Angeles workers were not interfering with our businesses. And as a result, we have much, much more parking. We changed it to diagonal parking, and those two actions have made a vast, vast difference for these businesses. But more importantly, it proved to the people that when you need to call your government, please call them. Challenge us to do our job. We're honoring these men for their 50 years and 35 years and 17 years of doing their job in a very humble and quiet way. Thank God that they weren't quiet when we got in their way. Thank God that they called us and asked us to do our duty. And I think we've done a pretty darn good job. I'm not going to say we did a perfect job or an excellent job. We've done a pretty darn good job because I believe that these gentlemen will call us if the situation gets worse. And we welcome your call, as we did last time. And I believe that these gentlemen do believe that this is a great country. I do believe that these gentlemen do understand that we as government are here to serve. And I thank God that we've had the opportunity to heed those calls, to respond to those calls, and do a pretty darn good job. So on that note, I'd like to thank all three of them for their work and for their diligence in calling our office. And I'd like to ask Hagop to come forward and say a few words as well.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. You said it all. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you. You said it all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Wesson, you will do a presentation now on behalf of Mr. Koretz. Mr. Herb Wesson.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. And before Mr. Cardenas, before you do your photographs with these three gentlemen, I would like to say to Luigi was the tailor. Luigi, everything that I wear is tailor-made. So I may be visiting you myself. It's not that expensive, Mr. Cardenas. You just miss a couple of meals a day and you can afford it, okay? And Giovanni, I'd like to make arrangements because I have never had a shave with a razor. and I think I will travel to the Valley. I will get Mr. Cardenas to come with me so that he will watch you shave me, and then maybe he will have the courage to get a shave, and both of us will do that. And Mr. Hago, I want to talk to you. I love animals. I'm filling in for Mr. Koretz right now, but because of my Neil, I have the podium. Comments from the peanut gallery. Anyway, Hago, I love animals. Unfortunately, my animals seem to love my shoes. So I should visit you because I need repair on 2. So I'm going to bring my business to the Valley, and I will see if you are as skilled as Mr. Cardenas says you are. I hope that you are, because one of these pairs of shoes I really love deeply. So, Mr. Cardenas, and to your guests, I salute you. I think that it's a phenomenal thing that you would take the time to highlight some business men from the Valley that are also community service servants. So I'd ask that we give them another round of applause.
Mr. Wesson, I will join you on 2 of those outings, but I will pass on the haircut.
Okay. No, I'm going to get a shave.
Okay.
Maybe we can get Mr. Cardenas to do the haircut.
There we go.
You and I'll get the shaves with the straight razor.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to bring up Mr. Koretz because today is Feline Friday. And I'm so glad that Mr. Koretz is a member of the council, because I try to find homes for dogs. He tries to find homes for cats. And it was here, right at this very podium, where I initially had my first kitten, and kind of goes back to the tailor-made suits. I had just gotten a new suit, and I had the kitten. It destroyed my suit. So from that moment on, I had other people come and hold the cats. But as you can see, Mr. Koretz knows what he's doing because he has a blanket. So with that, let's give it to the cat
All right.
whisperer, Paul Koretz.
Mr. Koretz, for the
Thank you.
Feline Friday presentation.
Thank you, Herb. And of course, this kitten is actually trying to get out of the blanket, so I don't know whether the blanket will matter much this time. In fact, I think I'll just take it off. I'm delighted to be here on another Feline Friday, where we try to find homes for these beautiful kittens and cats. And today we have with us a beautiful domestic short hair named Molly. Molly's a little squirmy. Molly's 3 months old, and she has beautiful eyes, if you can see her in the camera, and a very sweet personality. And if you want to adopt Molly, who's a little bit squirmy right now, you can call my office at 213-473-7005, or come down to the council chambers in Van Nuys to adopt her out. Her ID number is A1077817. And generally, to adopt an animal from any of our shelters, you can start the process by calling 1-888-452-7381 to reach any of our 6 animal shelters. And in addition, you can see photos of our animals and information on our website at laanimalservices.com. And if you're interested in a particular animal, you can visit the shelter and come get it. Once again, I'll give the cat's ID number. It's A1077817. And if the cat isn't adopted out right here, you can call my office, 213-473-7005, or come down to the council chambers to adopt her out. Again,
Thank you.
a beautiful
Thank you, Mr.
cat named
Koretz.
Molly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz and Molly.
Hello, Molly.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, we're now at a quorum. Please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Hahn, Weezer, Koretz, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Wesson, Zinger, SETI, 11 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
The next item, please. First
Approval of
item
minutes.
business. Mr. Smith and Mr. Wesson, second.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Reyes and Mr. Rosenthal, seconds.
Mr. President, would you like to go through the agenda?
Please do.
On the regular agenda, items 1 through 11 are items for which public hearings have been held.
1 through 11. Ms. Hahn?
8, please.
Number 8 special for Ms. Hahn.
Hold item one
Mr.
on-
Labange?
Hold item 1 on the table.
Mr. Labange, request hold item number 1. On the remaining items, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 eyes.
Next items, please.
Items 12 through 15 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration. There is a request to continue item 13 to December 11th.
Without objection, continue. Mr. Koretz.
I'd like to call item 14 special.
Number 14 special,
And, Mr. President, you do have a card on number 12.
and that's number 12 special for a card.
That leaves item 15.
And on 15, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 eyes.
Very well. Next item, please.
That would take council back to the items called special or public comment.
Let's do the public comment period. And we would do public comment. If you are in City Hall, please fill out a card. If you're in San Pedro, fill out a card, and we will receive that down here in Van Nuys. For those here in Van Nuys, we will begin the public comment period. We will start with Richard. I only have a first name on this card. Richard? Is there a Richard in the audience? Not Richard Halverkine, Richard.
Good morning. Councilman Zine, I have a little announcement that the city attorney's office is not doing their job. And what I mean is, you're very familiar with something called Lone Star Security and Video. They're a very favorite company of yours that puts up those trailers with those signs all over the place. For the past year and a half, I've been giving notice to the city attorney's office that they are a suspended corporation, which they are not allowed to defend or prosecute cases in the courts. But the city attorney's office has not brought that up to the judge where it would get rid of all these lawsuits that they've brought. The city attorney's office keeps putting me to someone else, someone else, someone else. According to the Secretary of State, they're suspended. But they're still allowed to be in the courtroom because the city attorney's office does not want to bring that up to the court. If the city attorney's office does not want to take care of business, there is no reason in about 20 days that I'm going to file an intervener and get the problem closed. That's going to cost me money. I'm tired of the city attorney's office considering and basically discounting you, Councilman Zine, when you want these people gone. I've talked to several other council members that are shocked that the city attorney's office is still allowing this company that has a suspended corporation in which none of their permits or licenses would be valid since they're not a valid corporation to do business in the city of Los Angeles. I'm asking you or any other council people, ask the city attorney's office why they are still allowing prosecution of their case as they are plaintiffs and also appellants in the appeals court to go forward when they're a suspended corporation. You're giving them validity and access to make money in this city when they cannot legally under the corporate code. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I will have Mr. Olson from my office see you before you leave to get information. We have introduced some motions on that recently. Mr. Olson will be discussing that with you now from my office. Thank you. Our next public speaker is Darlene Korkinja.
Darlene Korkaji, and I'm here.
Okay, Darlene.
Hi, my name is Darlene Korkaji, and I am running for 6th District City Council, and if elected, I'm going to decrease homeless population by giving them housing and jobs, and I'm going to make sure low-income families get an increase in salary pay. And I'm also going to make sure that people in Van Nuys get to wear Juicy Couture clothing and have Coco Chanel handbags just like I do because I care about my community. Unlike Tony Cardenas because he's lazy. Thank you.
Our next public speaker, Noel Weiss.
Council members, good morning. First, a belated anniversary. 3 years ago, November, the living wage ordinance at the hotels was passed. I think Janice Hahn deserves a certain amount of credit because actually all of the credit, because but for her, it wouldn't have happened. We've got probably maybe $10 or $12 million in the pockets of those hotel workers in this recession. Very nice Christmas present. You can go online, you can see in Chicago, in San Francisco, they're fighting for this ordinance. It got done here, got done because of Janice. I wanted to acknowledge that. Secondly, with regard to the SB 1818 situation, the council is going to have to pass an ordinance to correct and to comply with the judge's ruling. I would like in that ordinance for the council to consider adopting, in addition to removing the portions that we got the court basically to remove, talking about the need for economic feasibility. It's in the ordinance. And the fact is that a case just came down, and we'll basically provide it. But I just wanted to read briefly so that everybody understands what the law really requires. This was a case from a court of appeal that just came down in November, and it said the city engaged in a cost certification project. MLK, the developer submitted pro formas analyzing and comparing the cost, returns, projected net profit, yield as a percentage of project cost, and rate of return for developers with 91 units, 123 units, 148 units, and 186 units. The city did not just accept those pro formas, but analyzed alternative projections. The point being that we need to get a dialogue going between the communities and the developers so that we can get SB 1818 projects without having the community opposition. It's the failure and the inability, and I've talked to the top people in the planning department. They've told me the developers have asked, the planning department's asked for this economic information. SB 1818 requires it, but the developers aren't forthcoming. The city council needs to mandate that. And finally, again, I'll put in my push for TOPA, Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. Hopefully, we can begin to move forward on that, since inclusionary zoning in rentals is now not a viable option.
Thank you. Your time is up, Mr. Weiss. Thank you. Candido Moraes. Candido?
Hi, Candy.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members. Candido Maris, Jim DeGeeter, proud residents of the 12th District, where we're represented by the great Councilman Greg Smith, and we want to welcome you to the heart of the San Fernando Valley, Van Nuys. Both of us have been involved in Van Nuys, and even though we love the 12th District, we have a great love for Van Nuys. And you saw an example of that. The three gentlemen, we have worked with them, and we're going to be doing a Christmas party with them next week, and they're absolutely wonderful people, so I'm glad that you were able to meet them. But again, thank you for coming out this way. We've done a lot. A lot has been accomplished this year within the city. We have a lot to face this coming year. The budget's going to be a big issue. The city is in trouble, and we hope that we really take the effort to correct those issues. But I know the power and the ability and the will is here within this council. Thank you, and everyone have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you, Candido. It's always good to see you. Chuck Tenon.
Good morning, council members. Chuck Tenon. I want to talk about the increase of portable advertising signs in our streets. Councilman Zine, take notice. Increasing threat to our neighborhoods and the city of Los Angeles. Portable signs that can be moved and placed anywhere for $13 a day to advertise. Now they're chaining them to city signs. They get knocked over. There's graffiti on them. They take up valuable parking space. They move them anywhere they want. They take revenue away from the local businesses. It looks cheap. It can cause accidents because it distracts motorists. And also recently surfaced in the San Fernando Valley, huge mail thefts in CD2 and CD5. Some of them were caught on video. And also, I spent over a half a century on the ocean between Palos Verdes and Point Dume. And the MLPA massive recreational closures of our ocean is going to hurt and cost all Californians. And now the increase of toxic chemical waste that's dumped in our oceans through our sewer systems is contaminating our waters, killing the fish and the marine resources, and they want to close down the oceans. It's unsafe. Fix it. Please fix it. It's important. Do not let them get away with it, but do not hurt the people or blame it on the people. Blame it on mismanagement and blame it on a lot of contamination for decades. I know when I worked in Malibu, we had septic tanks under the ground, 6 of them. And I had an engineer put in a 7th, and he said there was evidence of it leaking into the ocean. 35 years of that. That's why it smells up there, and that's why it smells at Palos Verdes. Fix that. Don't close down our resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck Tenon. Our next speaker is Sharon Brewer.
Sharon Brewer, public comment. First, CD3, have your staff Googled Lone Star Security? I did yesterday. It's really interesting. I wanted to talk about the marijuana dispensaries, the LA ordinance, and suggestions regarding the compassionate use law. One, if people running dispensaries are truly compassionate, there should be no salaries for anyone. People donate their times, not a source of income for anyone. 2, recoup verifiable expenses only, rent, water, electricity, etc. 3, what is the cost per plant, per dose? 4, need to be able to track people with recommendations to avoid someone going to multiple dispensaries getting more marijuana than recommended. 5, dispensaries identify where plants grown if off-site. 6, basic costs for growing marijuana as uniform as possible throughout the city to avoid price gouging. Doctor recommendations need to be checked to make sure they're licensed in California, have business licenses, and need to be able to track number of recommendations handed out. Cap number of patients per dispensary to avoid too many patients, meaning increased amount of plants on site, too much foot traffic. Possible background checks for owners. And I just found out yesterday from the LA Weekly article titled LA's Medical Weed Wars that I actually have a marijuana dispensary at Reseda and Bessemer, which is really close to where I'm at. And I'm wondering why that it needs to be there. They need to check about the need. And also, there's 63 pages of collectives where they've listed by council district, if anybody wants to see the ones, and they've already made contact and know whether they're open or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
President, I just wanted to comment on the gentleman's comments regarding Lone Star and the problems with trailers, unattached trailers, to let the people that are watching know that the city, at your urging and mine, a year and a half ago passed a new ordinance that allows us to post areas as no unattached trailer advertising zones. And you've done that a lot. I've done that. I don't know if all council members realize that you have the ability, if you have a problem with a congregation of these trailers being left on the streets, that you can ask DOT to post that area with a no unattached trailer zone so you can get them removed and get DOT out there. And we are doing that very actively in our districts, and we are impounding those on a regular basis. But I do appreciate the gentleman's information. I know your office and I will follow up on that to see if that can in any way abbreviate the court case that we have right now. So thank you, Mr. Zine, for your leadership on that. And I know my district's benefited greatly from it, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith. And it spreads through other districts. There'll be more city interest in it, but it's definitely affecting the valley, and we are aggressively pursuing it. So I want to thank the speakers on that issue. Downtown, Arnold Sachs. Arnold Sachs, public comment, downtown. That'll be our final public comment speaker. Then we'll go to the agenda. Mr. Sachs, downtown.
Thank you. Good morning. Arnold Sachs. I did want to address 3 things today. First, regarding the marijuana. This is an article from Wednesday, November 25th. Pot shops can still take cash, LA says. This is an article from last week's LA Times. Court may order ban on pot sales. No sale of pots. Or pot. It would be nice if you got your information first before you decided on a course of action. We'll talk about that a little bit later on one of your items on your agenda. Another item I wanted to address is I'd like to congratulate Mr. Councilman Cardenas in his presentation today, I believe. Imagine that. LADOT ticketing city vehicles. Because I could swear I've heard somebody come up here numerous times and complain about police cars that are illegally parked downtown LA. 10, 15 times within a year, this person's come up and spoken about illegally parked police cars downtown LA. And here, we hear that LADOT can ticket city agency vehicles. Are the tickets enforced? Are they paid? But they can't ticket illegally parked police vehicles. What a policy. Congratulations. on that presentation. And finally, I wanted to thank Councilman Alarcon for his passionate argument regarding the high-speed rail and the station in the valley. But conversely, why should the public have to buy and deal with building 3, maybe 4 stations in the city of L.A. at $100 million each?
Thank you. Your
Where
time
the
is up,
funding
Mr.
comes
Sachs. We did find a card from Zumadog, and he will be our final speaker. Zumadog at City Hall.
Yes, thank you so much, City of Los Angeles, Zumadog, and everything I discuss is blogged at zumadog.org to follow up. First of all, welcome home, Nooch. Welcome home, Nooch. He's safe and sound. He was just spending too many hours working inside City Hall and inhaled too much toxic air without a biohazard suit. I warn against that. About 8 hours is all any human can handle. Top issue for 2010, I'd like to give the alert, the budget. The budget. The budget is about the only thing I want to hear anyone talking about inside this horseshoe. And between January and June, the decision will be made. What departments will be closed? What will be consolidated? There will be massive firings. I'm sorry, it's happening. The doomsday scenario is here. And so I'd like to say in all seriousness and with all respect, with so much serious business, please, certain council members, don't grandstand, don't duplicate, less button pushing, less repeating what the last guy said. Let one council member say it for the city. Please reduce the wasteful talk. And please, I'm very serious. Get to the serious business. Zumadog motion. Only let Garcetti and Parks talk during these meetings to fix the budget, and the rest, please, let them do the heavy lifting and stop the nutty talk. Now, Wall Street pension alerts. I don't like the fact that Lacer pension money, the entire comeback of the city of L.A., is based on a Wall Street rally. And I don't think it's the case that Lacer should stand idle and council sit idle and allow the Treasury to slip away. Do something. And finally, citizens alert. Zumadog is here to say an election on Tuesday, public safety issue. I see time is running out. To the people that watch me on TV for 3.5 years, I urge you to vote Christine Essel on Tuesday. Join Zine, Rosendahl, Tutanich, and now Joel Wax. Joel Wax endorses Christine Essel. Please vote.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, we've received additional public comment cards. Do you have a comment on that?
Under Council Rule 11, it states that members of the public who wish to address the council shall hand a speaker card to the Sergeant-at-Arms prior to the start of the particular comment period. It's up to the council president's discretion as to whether to allow late cards to be to have those matters taken up.
And we started the public comment period approximately 10:30. We have 2 more cards that have come in. These will be the last 2 public speakers. If people wish to speak, we appreciate that, but you need to turn your card in, so we will have you on the in the information so we could bring you forward. Our 2 final speakers, Matt Dowd. Go ahead, Matt Dowd, down at City Hall.
Thank you. I appreciate that. See, the problem is the parking around City Hall. I told you it's $3 an hour, and like it's a bunch of quarters you got to carry around. So I have to park. I just did a 4-minute mile. So I'm going to wind up. It's going to be good. All right. Obama's a fraud. Tell Eric Garcetti needs to call Obama because he's sending troops to Afghanistan, $30 billion and a bunch of money, and that doesn't appear to be what Eric was campaigning for. I thought it was change. He was the change president, but he's just like all the rest, just send another bunch of soldiers to war, and then we end up with all the Jameel Shaws back here. And then nothing happens about stuff like that. But I don't want to be angry, because I've had a good week, and anything that happens to me in the city of Los Angeles is the business of the city of Los Angeles. While I'm in 2 federal litigations, people come up to me on the street and they say they love what I do, and how because You know, we actually come down here and address the city council instead of just talking about it. We do it. So I want to make my endorsement for Tuesday, the CD2 election. You know, I'm backing Chris Essel for that one. I already got cut off the other day talking about Paul Krikorian bankrupting the state. They just haven't declared yet. Now, as far as Venice Beach is concerned, Bill Rosendahl is a fraud because he's told me that Norm Kohler would get involved with this, and I've emailed them and done everything, and they do nothing.
Our next public speaker, Phil Jettijohn.
Okay, Councilman Zine, I just want to say thanks a lot for allowing my car to came running here. I thought, a Friday dog and pony show, I thought you guys would be doing presentations for about an hour and a half. Suddenly I call in and council phone, you guys have already started public comment after about 30 minutes. It was shocking. I just want to talk about the CD2 election coming up. This very specifically is germane to the council situation because in a couple more days, the city council is going to have a new member. It's either going to be Christine Essel or it's going to be Paul Krikorian. And personally, I want to thank a bunch of people for the city who have endorsed Christine, as I have. Wendy Gruhl, Carmen Trutanich, Richard Reardon, Janice Hahn, Herb Wesson, Jan Perry, Greg Smith, Bill Rosendahl, Tom LaBonge, Jose Huizar, Dennis Zine, also the LA Chamber of Commerce and the Los Angeles Police Protective League have all endorsed Christine Essel. A lot of other people have too. Now, you're free to vote wherever you want to. I mean, I don't mind if people vote for Paul Krikorian, but I've actually come out and stated publicly I'm not a big fan of his. Strangely enough, there's kind of a cult of personality building around him. Some of the people who follow him blindly worshiping this guy, thinking he's going to be the savior. And, this is a man who, he was on Burbank School Board, and he abandoned that job to run for state legislature. He abandoned that job to run for city council. And for some reason, the people who are supporting him, they think he's going to be the answer for everything here at city council. I just don't agree with that. And the election is on Tuesday. There's not going to be a lot of votes. So even some of you that live in other parts of the city, you probably have friends that live in CD2, which is kind of like the eastern half of the valley, Valley Village, Sherman Oaks, North Hollywood area like that. If you want to call your friends or send them an email, tell them to vote for Christine Essel. I'd certainly appreciate it. And thank you, Dennis Zine, for letting me speak. You're one of the good ones. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you, Phil. That concludes our public comment period. We have just a few items on the agenda. Mr. LaBonge, I will let you know we're going to take those other items first. You're still on the table, but we're going to be coming up to you soon, Mr. LaBonge. We have a special on number 8.
Called special by Councilmember Hahn.
Ms. Hahn, on number 8, please.
Thank you, Mr.
Good
President.
morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Colleagues, this is an item today that will give our housing department the authority they need to issue housing revenue bonds in the amount of $14 million for the Dana Strand Senior Apartments in Wilmington. And this will allow 100 senior units to be constructed that are going to be affordable. But this is really today one of the phases that we have been engaged in with the Dana Strand project in Wilmington. This was a former housing development project that was rife with gang violence, and it was a blighted part of the community of Wilmington. And through public-private investments and partnerships, we have now transformed this into a beautiful mixed-use housing complex. And we know that we don't have enough affordable senior housing in Los Angeles, so this is important that we're adding another 100 units right here in Wilmington. And this is close to an elementary school, and part of the vision of this project is that the seniors will be able to find opportunities to work with some of the young kids after school, maybe engage in a potential tutoring, mentoring opportunity. So it really is a very livable community that we're creating in Wilmington, where once, again, it was wrought with gang violence and poverty. So I know Wilmington looks forward to welcoming this new project. I want to thank HACLA and our housing department for moving this project forward and making this a reality. Construction on these units will begin in the spring of 2010, so that's good news for everybody, and I would ask for an aye vote on this item today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn, and thank you for that addition to residents for our wonderful people of Los Angeles. On that matter, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Unanimously approved. Very well. Thank you. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Item 12, called special for cards.
On number 12, Arnold Sachs, Zumadog, and Matt Dowd. Arnold Sachs, all downtown.
Thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. Maybe you might have read the story that's been coming over the newspapers regarding the stimulus funding for the energy for the state of California, the energy funding that was passed on by the federal government, like over $200 million has been sent to the state of California, and yet not a penny has been spent. But we heard from all our illustrious council members about shovel-ready projects, shovel, shovel, shovel. Stop shoveling the crap. Start getting some projects done. We hear all about how the unemployment rate is high, high, high. We need these projects for jobs, jobs, jobs. Where are the jobs? Where are the projects? What's the money doing besides collecting dust in people's pockets? I mean, you're supposed to, why isn't anybody on the council demanding the city of LA, the leader in green technology? There's $200 million sitting up in the state of California, and not one of a penny of it has been spent on green technology in the city of LA. Heavens forbid. Why not? We have a committee, don't we? We have the DWP. Oh, wait, they just got a pay raise authored by the mayor. So maybe that's green technology. Different kind of green. Thank you.
Zumadog, and then Matt Dowd.
Boy, what a sight this must be on TV. Okay, we're talking about the federal stimulus money. First of all, I'd like to issue a warning that, money, it's not like you can just sit here and print it endlessly. Oh, well, actually they do, but even then, I think they're going to be stopping. I do believe that this will be a final wave of federal stimulus money. I'd like to remind City Council, and especially Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, this money is not to bail the city out of its mess by giving it to the DWP or giving it to the airport or for projects, your pet projects that you want funded. It's to stimulate shovel-ready jobs in the community for the private sector, for public. Let's say you have somebody that comes to the city. I got this great project, and it's like housing for people, and we just need some help to jumpstart it. Well, that's what it's for. Again, it's not to have you bail out your economic mess. And secondly, I'd like to say that Dr. Deming's 14 points must be mentioned during this, because you're getting federal money. Federal money, very important in a time when the city has economic crisis. What do? You always end up wasting it. Look at Grand Avenue Project. There was $100 million invested into Grand Avenue Project, but they say, don't worry, we're not going to lose it because it was already spent. I don't see anything in Grand Avenue yet, so how did $100 million get spent and there's been nothing to see for it? So front-end loaded management contracts, first of all, watch the racketeering on this stuff, because Obama doesn't want your pals getting rich off of the contracts that you give them, and everything gets driven up, and you got 10 people getting paid to switch a light bulb, all right? And Dr. Deming's 14 points, I'm going to close by saying this is the perfect opportunity. You have federal money in an economic crisis. You better make sure you improve the efficiency and reduce the waste, and it shouldn't be taking 10 months to get a tree trimmed around here.
Matt Dowd, our final speaker on this item number 12.
Thank you. Yeah, let me shout out first to USC, Cal State political students who follow Zumadog and Matt Dowd. As we talk about things like this, let me tell you what's happening with the economy right now. The federal government owns 1/3 of Citibank and is guaranteed $200 billion of their future exposure. $200 billion, and they're a global company now, so those toxic assets are everywhere. They're global now. America sold them all on. It's a massive, that's why Iceland went under. The Bank of America's loaded with the toxic acids, so is Wells Fargo. The federal government's trying to get out of that stimulus thing because they realize it's going to drive inflation. Because the dollar has to be printed to make up all the bonds they're issuing to China. See, China's buying America right now. Because we bought all the Chinese stuff first, all those retail BlackBerries and all the computer upgrades and everything Apple and all the furniture and the little thing you put your bath on, the soap in the bath that hangs on the side of the bathtub. They all came from China. The seats probably in City Hall that you're sitting on. So the federal government's going to pull out. They're going to raise interest rates. They're talking about it. They have to do it because they're just giving free money out right now. The banks are taking all the free federal money. That's why we're not getting it. And they're using it to buy higher yielding assets in foreign countries which are riskier, but they're getting free money. So they're investing it and getting free returns. But that will end very soon, and the dollar's going to go back up. And the stock market's going to go down, and the financials will lead it because they're still struggling in their toxic assets. Get Obama to call me.
Thank you. And that matter does not require a vote. Mr. Clerk. Next item.
Item 14, called special by Councilmember Koretz.
Mr. Koretz, number 14, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, next week, delegates from around the world will be meeting in Copenhagen for the 15th Annual Conference of the Parties, also known as COP15. A number of delegates are going from Los Angeles, including students and professors from UCLA and our own Mayor Villaraigosa. They, along with hundreds of others, are going because this is a watershed moment. World leaders have an opportunity to reach a comprehensive agreement before the Kyoto Protocol expires in 2012. In its place, if all goes well at the COP15, they'll consider a new and more aggressive proposal that seeks to cut greenhouse gas emissions by over 30% of 1990 levels by 2020 and cut our emissions worldwide down to as low as 95% of what they were in 1990 by 2015. We all see the devastating effects of greenhouse gases globally, but we see them locally in the city too, as it affects the Pacific Ocean's coastline, affects our ports, affects our air quality. We see increased levels of asthma, and the impacts go on and on. So I ask you today to join me in a unanimous vote in support of this resolution, which supports these aggressive but attainable reductions and will enable Antonio Villaraigosa, our mayor, to travel to this conference and show that we're all behind him and behind these much tougher protocols. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz, on that matter. That matter is now before us for a vote. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote, colleagues.
12 ayes.
Very well. Mr. Labange, we are now at number 1, and the agenda is complete except for number 1. Mr. Labange on... Mr. Koretz?
Oh, I'd just like to ask that that be transmitted forthwith.
Forthwith, yes, very well. We will transmit that forthwith. Mr. Tom Labange on number 1, please.
Thank you. I just want to thank Mr. Reyes as the chair of the committee for this work. We still have work to do with the community, but I ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Okay. That matter is now before us. There has been a public hearing on this, and that matter is before us for a vote. There's no one on the queue. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That matter is approved. Forthwith on that matter. Mr. Clerk?
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Posted and referred.
The desk is clear.
Very well. Any announcements, colleagues? Announcements for this weekend? Thank you. No announcements? Mr. Parks?
Come on, can I just do one? Okay.
Mr. Parks, announcements.
I just want to invite those that are football fans to come out to Crenshaw High School at 7 o'clock this evening. They're in the third round of the playoffs, number 1 ranked team in the city of Los Angeles. They're going to be playing their arch rival, Dorsey, for the second time this year.
Mr. Koretz, announcements? Mr. Smith?
The first announcements of the kind, but the annual Granada Hills Christmas Parade will be this Sunday at 1:30, beginning on Chatsworth Street at what is that street?
Devonshire?
No, it's on Chatsworth and Pettit. Chatsworth and Pettit, all the way down to Zelza, starting at 1:30. All are invited. It's a great parade, one of the largest in the valley. We have a very large group, and our Channel 35 folks will be out there to broadcast as well, so all are invited.
Mr. Rosendahl?
And we have a Christmas parade in Westchester on Sunday at 1 o'clock. It starts over where my office is there, and there'll be a lot of people. Come on and meet Santa and have some fun if you live in Westchester.
Mr. Reyes?
It's for adjournment.
Janice Hahn. Ms. Hahn.
We also have two parades this weekend in the harbor. Saturday night is our annual boat parade, being seen in the main channel of the Port of Los Angeles. I believe it starts around 6 o'clock, so come on down. Good place to watch it would be the Portugal restaurant. It's always a beautiful event. And then on Sunday we have the San Pedro annual holiday Christmas parade, I believe starting around 1 o'clock. If it doesn't rain. So let's pray for sunny days on Sunday.
Any other announcements? Mr. Alarcon?
Well, we also have a parade. That's the Pacoima Parade tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock on Van Nuys Boulevard in Pacoima. And this parade has been going on for as long as I can remember. And we're hoping everybody comes out to have a great time in Pacoima.
Mr. Reyes?
Yes, and along with Councilman Huizar, we both share Highland Park, and the great folks of Highland Park and the Chamber and all the advocates put together the Highland Park Parade on Sunday at 1 o'clock. So hope to see folks from Northeast out there. Thank you.
It sounds like there's a lot of parades this weekend as we approach the holiday season. Also on the Sunday at the Jewish Home, they will have their annual 5K walk run. Everyone's invited. Registration 8 a.m. The walk run starts at 8:30. That's at Victory and Wilbur in the San Fernando Valley. And everyone's invited to that. Also on Sunday, the 6th annual Motor for Toys event. We will be participating in that. And folks come out with their cars and bring toys. The toys are then given to the law enforcement authorities to give to the needy in the community. That's the 6th annual Motor for Toys. And they will meet at the Anthem Building, 21555 Oxnard Street in Woodland Hills. There'll be a number of very exotic cars with a lot of toys. That's an annual event, so everyone's invited to that. Also on Sunday, join your parades. No other announcements, colleagues? Adjourning motions? Excuse me, Janice? Janice, you have another announcement?
The Watts Willowbrook Christmas Parade is being held on Saturday at noon. So it's a full weekend of parades.
Parades everywhere. With that, please stand for adjourning motions. Audience, please stand for adjourning motions. Mr. Alarcon, adjourning motion.
Yes, members. Two tremendous women from the African American community in Pacoima passed away just in the last couple of days. First of all, Marie Harris, at the age of 87, passed away from natural causes on December 2nd, surrounded by family at Northridge Hospital. Marie was born in Houston, Texas. She later moved to Detroit, where she co-owned the Elite Boulevard House of Fashions. She captured the formal award in a nationwide competition from the National Association of Fashion and Accessory Designers. When she moved to Pacoima in 1960, she served as the fashion coordinator, spearheading the designer showcase at the Beverly Hilton in 1963 and 1964. In 1964, she produced a series of designer showcase fashion shows to help raise funds to build a new educational unit of Parks Chapel AME Church in Pacoima. In 1973, she became a columnist for the Northeast Valley Post, writing two weekly columns, Fashions Limited and Kaleidoscope Society Scoop. In 1980, Marie was appointed to Mayor Bradley's committee on the city's bicentennial celebration in the Sepulveda Basin, which motivated her to produce the Back to Pacoima Expo at Hansen Dam to honor Pacoima's superstars, professionals, and trailblazers. Marie was on the board of directors for the Economic Alliance, a commissioner for the Children's Museum, a commissioner for the San Fernando Valley Fair. She also served on the board of directors of Valley Vote and the board of directors of the Pacoima Chamber of Commerce, and was very involved every year with the Pacoima Christmas Parade. She's preceded in death by her husband, Alvin Harris. She's survived by her 3 children, Sydney, Rolene, and Alton. She will be truly missed by her children, grandchildren, friends in the community. Her bio really doesn't capture the spirit of Marie Harris. She was the essence of community spirit in Pacoima. Was at almost every event that she could get to, she was at. Sometimes she would put pressure on those of us who were trying to advocate for this cause or that to do it in a way that was more sensitive to the community, but she always did it with the best interests of Pacoima at heart. A tremendous woman, and she will be sadly missed at the events. One of her dreams was to establish a Walk of Fame in Pacoima. I hope that someday we will be able to accomplish that in a big way. Also, we lost...
Mr. Smith has a comment.
If I could add to that, too. Marie Harris did a tremendous service to the people of L.A. In the 1992 riots, when large portions of Los Angeles were burning. Marie Harris led a group of African Americans in the Pacoima community to keep that community from igniting. And she went out and worked very closely with the police department and Foothill Division, where really was the impetus of the whole riot with the Rodney King beating, to keep the lid on the community and keep the violence down, and really was one of the center points of keeping peace in our community in the Valley. And it really was the start of the whole riot. Really started at Rodney King and Foothill Division. So she was a tremendous community person, cared about all of her community, and did a tremendous job of keeping peace in L.A. So I want to commend her, and if I may, I'd love to be on that, maybe all members.
All members, all council members on that, on the adjourning motion. Mr. Alarcon?
We also lost a tremendous advocate in the San Fernando Gardens complex in Pacoima. Betty Moore was a very special person. She was 64 when she passed away this Tuesday, December 1st, at Pacifica Hospital in Sun Valley from a heart attack. She was born on July 31st, 1945 in Crossett, Arkansas. She was one of 7 children born to Mattie Moore and Richard Weekly. She moved to California and attended St. Paul Baptist Church, where she was a member of the choir as well as the usher board. She was a licensed vocational nurse at Sierra Memorial. They always make this mistake. It's Sarah Medical Hospital, also known as Pacifica Hospital in Sun Valley. And for the past 28 years, Betty resided in San Fernando Gardens. Betty was involved with the San Fernando Gardens drill team for over 25 years. Every year she raised money for uniforms for the children so they could perform in the Pacoima Christmas Parade, but they performed everywhere they could perform in Pacoima. She is preceded in death by her mother Mattie, her 2 brothers, Reverend James Moore and Richard Weekly, 1 sister, Bernice Jasper, and her daughter, Brenda Joyce Hughley. Betty is survived by her son, Brian Matthews of Conway, Arkansas, and daughter, Renee Matthews of Lancaster, California. She also leaves behind her longtime friend, Danny Wayne Hendricks, her sisters, Dorothy Burwell and Rose Jacobs, brother Charles Moore, and a host of grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She will be truly missed by her family, friends, and especially the hundreds of children who she worked with at the drill team. I can tell you that I've been, as long as I've been a councilman, even since 1993, been working, and before that, when I represented Mayor Bradley, worked with Betty Moore on so many of her efforts, not just to improve the drill team, but really to add to the fabric of things that were positive going on at San Fernando Gardens. These 2 women are going to be sorely missed by Pacoima. Both were dedicated to creating pride in Pacoima and respecting Pacoima, and they will be sorely missed by so many different organizations that they've touched.
Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much. With great sadness, I have two adjourning motions to announce today. The first one is Roberto Pantanita, who died on November 22nd, 2009. He passed away from natural causes. Roberto Pantanita was born in South Dakota on September 22nd, 1916, to Jesse and Paul Pantanita. Coming from a military family where all 28 Pantanita men served in the military, Roberto Pantanita enlisted in the United States Navy during World War II and served from January 1942 to November 1945. In May of 1946, he enlisted in the Navy Reserves, where he retired in August 1952. Upon his retirement from the armed forces, Mr. Pantanita began to work for Shell Oil Company as a pipe fitter, where he would eventually retire years later. Mr. Pantanita was very simple and a quiet man who just wanted to help people. His family will remember him as a person who taught his children to love fellow men, to give first before taking, and help those in need. Mr. Pantanita passed on November 22nd, 2009, at the age of 93. His exemplary life, his endless love for his children will never be forgotten. He's survived by his daughter, Betty Jean Stosis, and her husband, Jack, his son, Al, Paul Pantanita, and daughter Cheryl Miner, and his six grandchildren, 14 great-grandchildren, and 4 great-great-grandchildren. I just want to add that I met Roberto Pantanita, not in person, but through his son, Al. All of those exemplary qualities that he exuded, not only in his generation and his prior generation, have been passed down to his son, Al, who's a tireless worker for the community of Arleta and the entire community of Los Angeles, and who never, ever says a bad word about anyone, even when the bureaucracy does what we do sometimes and gets in the way. He always moves forward in a positive fashion, and I believe that he learned that from his parents and the people who raised his parents. And again, we adjourn in memory of Roberto Pantanita. Also, I'd like to adjourn in the memory of Robert Cedillo, otherwise known as Bob. He passed away on November 29, 2009, from cardiac arrest. He was a lifelong resident of the Los Angeles community, and he overcame some medical disabilities. Bob and I were about the same age. He was a personal friend of mine, and I got the call a few days ago that he had passed on, and he's survived by his wife Lois and his parents Frank and Josephine Cedillo, his 3 brothers David, Jim, and Michael, and his sister Joanne. He was a very giving and loving individual, just a whole lot of fun, and someone that everybody enjoyed. When he came around, the room lit up. When he came around, it wasn't serious talk, it was fun talk. When he came around, it was a time for people to really enjoy the moment. So we're going to miss Bob tremendously.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. I also have 2. The first one I want to adjourn today is in the memory of retired Fire Captain Jim Perry, who tragically lost his life yesterday morning in a car accident coming to Los Angeles from Lake Tahoe to prepare for the United Firefighters Local 112 holiday party, which they subsequently canceled as a result of this tragedy. Jim was born in Oakland and moved to the San Fernando Valley at age 10. He graduated from Van Nuys High School in 1957 and went on to serve in the U.S. Army, California National Guard, and Army Reserve. He furthered his education with a fire science major at Los Angeles Valley College. He was appointed a fireman on April 8, 1961, and he retired at the rank of Captain 2 after serving on the Los Angeles City Fire Department for over 20 years. His assignments included some of the busiest fire stations in Los Angeles and many special duty assignments in the Bureaus of Administration and Fire Prevention. He also served as LAFD Public Information Officer, Commander / Photo Services and Public Relations Units, Technical Advisor to Television and Motion Pictures, and Founder Manager of the LAFD Boxing Club. Jim received numerous awards and honors, including the American Red Cross National Life Saving Award of Merit from President John F. Kennedy for the LAFD's first successful CPR in a physical rescue incident in 1963. Having served in almost every elected position on the executive board of UFLAC Local 112, Jim was voted a life member of that local affiliate of the International Association of Firefighters. Jim served as the editor of the Los Angeles Firefighter newspaper since 1970 and was the former executive editor of American Firefighter magazine. He received over 160 awards for excellence in journalism from numerous organizations, including the Greater Los Angeles Press Club and the International Association of Firefighters. Jim is survived by his wife, Bookie, 5 children, John, Ron, Christine, Niles, and Justin, 5 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. It's always a tragedy, to lose one of our men or women in LAPD or LAFD. This seemed particularly tragic that he was coming here specifically to help UFLAC put on their holiday party.
Mr. LaBonge.
Jim Perry was a great, tremendous individual. It was a tragic accident on Highway 395. He's in retirement. He's coming down for tonight's event, which has been canceled in his honor. As the accident occurred, as he was being assisted to, he asked about the other victims in it. They did transport the other victims by air. Jim went by ambulance and unfortunately succumbed to his injuries. He had an infectious hug whenever you saw him. He was a tremendous writer. He was the UFLAC newspaper is one of the best papers of all our journals for our employee organization. He was friendly, a great photographer, and he loved the fire department, loved the people who were on the fire department. He stood up real tall in 1978 after Proposition 13 to fight for the 5th firefighter as a commander at Station 99. Became a famous fight in our history here, and he sorely will be missed because he also had a great step in his walk, and he would come up and give you a jolt of a hug, and always trying to put people together. Jim Perry was a great man. I think we all should second, third, and fourth, and fifth it.
And if I could add to it, when I was at the press club, I was president of the press club for a while, but when he got the award, I gave him the award. And presented it to him, and of course I'm a hugger and he's a hugger, and we were hugging all the time. And when I was running for office, he took pictures of me, and when I got endorsements and all, I ended up in that newspaper quite frequently. But his positive energy, it was contagious. He'd walk in the room and you'd get really excited and really happy, and it was an honor for me to honor him and give him the Press Club Award as well.
All members on that sad passing.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Hahn?
And I have one more today, and the family is here today for this adjourning motion, and I'd like us to adjourn in the memory of Placido Caraballo, who passed away on November 23rd at the age of 78. And we have here his widow, Fidelia, his daughter, Maricela, and her husband, Chris, and a friend of the family. As a young man, Placido helped his father working in the family bakery. He was born in Cuba in 1931. He was the 5th of 7 siblings, and he worked with a small market that the family owned, and became a master baker himself. And years later, he worked in a factory that produced paper out of sugarcane pulp. And during this time, Fidel Castro came into power, and all the young men were required to serve in the Cuban militia. Placido was drafted for 3 years, and his duties were to guard the factory where he worked from an attack. Placido fell madly in love with Miss Fidelia Victoria Rollo, whom he married on June 17th, 1959. And this year they celebrated 50 years of marriage. In August of 1967, Placido immigrated from Cuba with his family, settling in the Torrance Harbor Gateway community. 3 months after he arrived in the U.S., he found work at the High Shear Corporation that manufactured nails for airplanes, where he worked for 10 years, receiving several promotions along the way. He proudly became a U.S. citizen in 1980. Maricela, I'm going to cry if I keep looking at you. He also became an active member of the local community. Placido was very involved with his church, Nativity Catholic Church. He served on the board of directors as their treasurer for over 2 decades. Placido was also very involved in the local Cuban community for close to 2 decades. He was a member of the Club Cubanacan and also served on the board of directors. The Cuban Club was a place for Cuban families to socialize with one another, celebrate Cuban holidays, and keep the Cuban culture and traditions alive with music, dance, and readings from famous Cuban authors. Placido was also involved with Alpha 66, an organization that strives for Cuban liberty from Castro and helps newly immigrated Cuban people settle into the U.S. He was always helping fellow immigrants find their place here in the United States. Though he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis several years ago, he maintained a positive spirit and continued to enjoy every minute of every day of his life. He was always the first one to arrive at the party and the last one to leave. He was also a dapper, impeccable dresser who liked to look his best. Okay, this is the part I can't read out loud, so can you finish that?
You're asking me to read what I'm
Yeah.
saying? All right.
Yeah, I know.
Placido was surrounded by his family when he passed, and his last gesture was to blow kisses to all of them. He is survived by his wife, Fidelia, 3 children, Blanca, Rainier, and Marisela Caraballo, who Janice Hahn has known for many years through her work in legislative affairs at the Harbor Department. He's also survived by 8 grandchildren, Andrew, Eric, Adam, Victoria, Ryan, Emma, Ashley, and Joseph. He is also survived by his siblings, Zoila, Jacinto, and Miguel, and many nieces and nephews. He will be dearly missed, but in his memory will remain alive and well in the hearts of all of them who knew him.
May he rest in peace. Adjourning motion, Mr. Parks.
I'd like to ask to be adjourned in memory of, we'll have more information next week, but a 16-year-old Crenshaw student was killed late yesterday in a traffic accident while walking across Crenshaw Boulevard, and Garrett Wheeler. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that, and we'll have more information next week.
We'll do the formal acknowledgement next week. Mr. LaBonge?
Yeah, members, I ask we adjourn in memory of Phil Canto, who was the maitre d' at Musso Frank's for many, many years. He's since retired. He lived in Echo Park in their beautiful Spanish home on the west side of Glendale Boulevard. He was a very lovely man. His son and daughter, his daughter's a teacher at Ivanhoe Elementary School. He cared for his wife through his years, and unfortunately lived, but had to go. He was truly a saint. Phil Canto, maitre d' from Musso Frank's, retired.
Mr. Reyes?
Colleagues, I'd like to adjourn in the memory of Officer Kenneth Kenny Aragon. He was fatally injured in a single-vehicle collision as he was heading northbound on his motorcycle at Fletcher Drive and Larga Avenue in Los Angeles. He was on his way to work. Officer Aragon had over 19 years with the Los Angeles Police Department. He had been assigned to the departments of Northeast area as a community relations officer, was in charge and began the Northeast Division Police Athletic League and worked closely with the Northeast Division Explorers. Colleagues, I had the honor of meeting him on several occasions. He was with us during our Veterans Day parade with Councilman Huizar in Highland Park. A few weeks ago, we had a block party in Monte Vista in Highland Park in an area where one of the cells of the avenues had taken over. And after the raids, many of the families were afraid to even come outside. The kids were living in fear, 2 blocks away from a grammar school. So we had a huge block party. We had food and services, a band, tables, and the families came out. And Officer Aragon was part of it. He helped us get this environment going. He started recruiting kids for a boxing gym to get them involved in boxing, and he knew that we should not be a city that just arrests people and puts kids to jail, but he wanted to intercept them and wanted to give them an ability to participate in athletics and boxing, and that's the spirit that he had as a police officer. He worked very closely with our council district office, with our deputies, and again, his spirit will hopefully live throughout all the officers who have that sense of purpose in engaging our youth and making our city that much better in light of all the ugliness that occurs. He is survived by his wife, Renee, and his children, Jessica, Gabriela, Elisa, Adam, and Nathan.
Mr. LaBonge? Mr. LeBlanc.
As all members, but I know Mr. Garcetti was extremely, as we all touched on this, it was an off-duty accident on a motorcycle on Fletcher Drive, right where the river crosses underneath and the off-ramp comes in, and it's late at night. I know yesterday morning when after the accident, in some ceremonial fashion, his body was driven by Northeast Station, and everyone in the station, including the local firefighters, lined San Fernando Road to pay respects for such an untimely death of a beautiful man. Anyone who's a police officer, anyone who goes in further to be involved with PALS and community relations, and as Ed mentioned, goes out to try to capture the energy of young people to get them going the right way instead of the wrong way, truly is a hero. And it was a tragic accident of a single vehicle himself in the accident. So God bless his memory.
Mr. Weezer.
Thank you very much. And yes, this was an individual who loved the community where he worked, and he became part of the community. Someone who you could tell that he really, truly enjoyed children, meeting young people, setting them in the right direction, and also that he really loved serving others. And so I ask that all members please sign this adjourning motion.
All members? No other adjourning motions? That'll conclude, and before we conclude, items 7 and 8 forthwith, please, Mr. Clerk. This concludes the meeting. City Clerk, please call the roll. Thank you. We are now adjourned. We will return on Tuesday. Have a lovely weekend, and enjoy all those holiday parades throughout the city of Los Angeles this weekend.